Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is the Kubernetes Cluster API Azure Provider Weekly Meeting. It's June 15th, 2023. Thanks, everyone, for coming. We are a sub-project of SIG Cluster Lifecycle, the Kubernetes Special Interest Group. And as such, we abide by their general rules of conduct, which you can read about through the link at the top of the document. But basically, it boils down to everybody try not to interrupt each other and everyone try to be polite. And try to raise your hand in the Zoom meeting so we don't talk over each other. At the beginning here, we usually take a minute to let anyone who is new to the meeting or who wants to introduce or reintroduce themselves to say hello. I'm going to call all of you the usual suspects, so I don't think we have anyone new, but if anybody wants to do that, I will be quiet for a few seconds. Let me make sure I can see if people raise their hands would be helpful. All right. I don't think so. So let's move on. If you want to add your name to the attendees list there, that can be helpful. And let's move on. We don't have a big agenda here, but as usual, it is filling in real time. So first thing is mine. I'm asking a probably rhetorical question. Should we do patch Z? Should we do cap Z patch releases today? We do have a fair amount of stuff in there. Sorry, I should have linked to it. And from my point of view, the only outstanding thing is it would be nice to get the CAPI 143 PR in there since it's been ready to merge for a while. If anybody wants to take a look at that, I think it's ready to merge and then we could put that in the patch. But either way, I feel like we should do a patch today. Does anybody have any contrary or supporting opinions about that?
+1 for the patch.
All right. Oh, thanks, John. John's going to link to the actual diff. Let me click on that just so we can see. Optional flat card tests, broken link, Calico. So nothing super urgent, but that's probably merits a patch for 1.8, I'm going to say. And then for 1.9, it's all the same stuff. Plus, that's a fix for what Dane pointed out last week. So hopefully that'll close that. So yeah, I think this merits a patch release, whether or not the 143 bump is in there. So I guess I'm saying I'll wait until noonish or so and see if that merges, and then we can do a patch release. I'm happy to do it unless people want to pair on it. We could do it in a Zoom meeting. It's not really that complicated, but it's good for people to see how the sausage is made. So yeah, so I guess I'll wait for a couple more hours and then I'll put a little notice out on Zoom, on Slack, do the release. And if people want to join me, that'd be great. Okay, and then the next thing I put on here, but this is really kind of a no-op. I'm just pointing out again that hopefully that issue, Dane, you pointed out last week should be fixed now. Thanks for letting us know, because that was pretty big oversight, actually.
Thanks for fixing it so quickly. Those are sneaky when they come in through a dependency like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then as well, it's probably a discussion for another day, but Jack was pointing out in the chat we had that maybe this is the kind of change upstream that should be a minor release rather than a patch release. I guess we can talk about that at some point in CAPI. But it certainly surprised us. It was a little more work than we expected. Ashutosh, you want to go talk about workload identity?
Thanks. Nothing much, just an PSA that got approval. So It's waiting on lazy consensus. It should get merged, and then we have one implementation PR. So I think we are there very soon. Thanks for helping.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for being patient too. I'll take a final look at it today, and I know Cecile was going to. So hopefully that's it for the proposal. Any questions? Jack?
When did lazy consensus begin?
I think it was commented today.
Oh, today. Okay. I was going to advocate for an accelerated lazy consensus based on the number of eyeballs that I've already seen. If we have LGTMs, I don't think we would need to wait. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we discussed last week we weren't gonna do a lazy consensus. We were just starting we actually started lazy consensus last week at the office hours, and we were just waiting for Anisha's approval. Since this has been open for like over 2 months now, it's like if you haven't started reviewing it, like it, it'd be good to not like start reviews like at the last hour. So that being said, we do want to like keep it open just for our last day. So if anyone wants, like people who have been reviewing want to do final pass, or anyone wants to do like a drive-by review, that's fine. So I just approved it, put it on hold, and I'm planning to remove the hold, or either me or Ashutosh can remove the hold like tomorrow morning or tonight, depending on time zone. If there are no objections.
Yeah, let's maybe pause for objections, and then but I'll just say preemptively congratulations, Ashutosh. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for being so patient. Okay. Anything else about the workload identity proposal? Next thing up, Dane, with potential nil pointer deref.
Yeah, and before I opened an issue on this, I just wanted to take just a quick minute and ask if maybe this was intended. There was a change, I think, about 3 months ago to the defaulting webhook to, I think it was something with setting the user managed identity, and a couple fields were deprecated for system managed identity. But as part of that, it looks up the machine pool that's associated with the Azure machine pool in order to get the cluster name, in order to get the Azure cluster, in order to get the subscription ID from that. But what's interesting is that means that the machine pool needs to be created before the Azure machine pool. And at least in our Helm flow, those are created together. And it seems like Helm just happens to be building the Azure machine pool first. I don't know if that's like a K-sort thing and it starts with an A, so it's doing that one first. But it prevents the deploy from working. It causes the controller, the defaulting webhook, to crash with a nil pointer deref unless you create the machine pool first. My question is that a bug, or is that an enforcement order that we want to basically ensure that the machine pool exists first?
Jack, go ahead.
Cecile made a suggestion in chat to look at this in code. I would benefit from that. Do we have a link to the?
I think we could
probably go ahead, Willie.
Find it.
Yeah, I remember making this refactor, and I don't think it was like an intention to have a to always enforce some sort of order, but I'm not sure if it's just a cappy thing to always assume that the machine pool will be created before that Azure machine pool. I guess someone else can correct me on that, but I can definitely take a look because I think I was working on that refactor. So I'll take a look at the PR or the issue.
Okay. Why don't it sounds like it's probably an issue then. I think in general, we don't enforce that kind of order. Yes, whoever, John posted the link to the code. Yeah, that's the code in Zoom.
We'll go ahead, click on the link just a second. Cecile?
Yeah, I think this is like one of few places in webhooks where we have an object whose validation depends on another object. In this case, I believe it's because we need the subscription ID. So the only reason we're getting the machine pool is to get to the Azure cluster so that we can get the subscription ID. And yeah, I think it's not ideal because it can lead to race conditions like you observed, like when one object gets created before the other. And I think that's why the retry was added. That's why there's a with retry there. So if it's not, sometimes when you're applying them concurrently, it will fail or like transiently until the other object gets finally created. And that's what that retry is for. But yeah, it's not great. I don't know if we have a good alternative. I think the alternative is just to not validate this in webhook and validate it in the controller. I don't know. It's not, like you said, it's not enforced that one should like exist before the other.
I think the problem is those resources don't actually apply concurrently. They appear to apply
Oh,
sequentially.
like in your case. So how are you applying them? Are you just creating one and then validating that and then creating the other?
I believe it's Helm template, pipe into ksort, pipe into kubectl apply. In this particular case.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, in this case, it is the owner, right? So it's kind of weird having the resource applied, but not its owner. I guess that's an implicit rule, right? Like, how do you have an owner ref if you don't have the owner object?
It's, you create a pool. So like our pool chart for an Azure cluster would have a machine pool resource, an Azure machine, but they're all applied in one chart. All the.
But it's just the way that Helm creates objects that causes the issue. Yeah. And the retry is not helping.
Correct.
Do you think a longer retry would help? Or is it just really blocking until one of them? Okay.
That's what it looks like is happening. It's blocking. I can start an issue. My question was mainly if this should this be a bug, and if so, I'll start an issue. I don't want to hog the meeting with it, but or is this something we just need to try and, I don't know, figure out a way to deal with somehow?
I think it's a
yeah,
bug.
I think it's definitely something we should discuss. Yeah. Sorry, Matt.
This rings a bell with, and I'm totally missing the context, but I feel like it might have been the same area. A long time ago, I implemented a webhook that needed to look up from machine through to Azure cluster because we needed to check the version of Kubernetes and disallow, because we need to check the version of Kubernetes and see how to do an indirect lookup from one like this. And I thought I made it optional, like it was a best effort thing. Because it was a validation where if the version of Kubernetes was too old, then we were going to reject building the cluster because VMSS Flex was turned on. That was it. And it might still be in here. Maybe I'm just mumbling about the same code, but I thought our resolution for that was just, it should be a best effort validation. If you try 5 times and we can't actually get the Azure cluster, then we don't really know the status, and so we'll just let it pass and have an error later. So I'm wondering if that's what we should be doing here, but maybe this is a different type of validation. But regardless, I do think it's a bug. We can't really guarantee that one or the other object gets created first. I don't think. Anything else on this topic, or should we just end it with a bug report?
Willie has something.
Willie?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to chime in. I don't know if a best effort model would work here, because I think before the subscription ID was there, we were always setting a default like scope, and we needed the subscription IDs to do that. So I think it would change the default behavior if we just do a best effort. So I kind of forgot how it was getting the subscription ID before. Maybe it was doing it in the controller. I'll have to take a look. But maybe we can just move this the setting of the default somewhere else, like in the controller. Cecile confirmed that it was in the controller, so maybe we can just move it back there. And that'll just be the issue.
Okay, one way or another, I'll start a GitHub issue to track this, and thanks for the input.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Sounds like a plan. All right, next up, Benny. You want to talk about the NodeOS caching proposal?
Yeah. Do you mind if I share or can I share my screen, or is that not?
Yeah, sure. I just have to figure out how to make you a host again, or co-host. Here we go. Okay, that should do it.
Okay. Okay. This should work.
Yep.
All right. So I want to talk about this proposal that I've added into PRs for NodeOS image caching. Which I'll just keep getting into it actually. Which is essentially this idea of on a constant interval, we're going to be caching like the image of a node's like OS, and then convert what every different Azure machines and different Azure machine pools are then using to spin up new nodes off of that OS. So I just wanted to kind of go through the proposal, see if anyone saw any glaring issues. There's a couple outgoing things that I haven't had time to fix on this that are still problematic, but I'll note them as we kind of get there. So here's just a general glossary of what node prototype pattern is, what warm nodes are, shared image gallery, snapshot, prototype node, like as general background. And then, yeah, the summary of this is essentially just we will be changing current existing controllers to be modified so that we cache the node's OS image on a regular interval, and then update the model to use that image for future scale outs. And so ideally we'd have faster horizontal scaling. We'd prevent this a security issue of like when a new node is spin up, it immediately needs different security patches, and just helps prevent people from needing to spin up lots of warm nodes and over provision to deal with this problem. Then a model scenario would be someone spinning up the cluster and having this feature be toggleable. If it's toggled, then as months passed on and updates accumulated, they would be cached and applied regularly so that they wouldn't have to constantly keep getting them every time they spin up the node. It's kind of similar to what I just said before. And then the goals are to create the solution to have this faster horizontal scale out of applications themselves and to prevent security issues. Certain things that are out of scope for like Windows features, it just might not be feasible for the initial proposal itself, and certain optimizations. There's also different metrics of selecting a candidate node that get more complex, that might be more optimized. And just automatic bad snapshot rollouts might be difficult to do. Yeah, in terms of user stories, again, this has faster horizontal scaling. It would ideally reduce different monetary environmental costs of over provisioning warm nodes, and then it would be more in line with security compliance as you have these patches applied. Okay, here's the meat of it, which is just the implementation. So the current plan is to go modify these controllers and allow for the feature be enabled to be toggled on or off over the entire environment, over the entire CAPC pod as a whole, with the environment variable being set on cluster CTL initialization, and then by cluster basis, it can be enabled by switching different fields in each of these resources. So here's an example of turning the environment variable on. The thing that I wanted to note that's kind of still outgoing issue or wrong is a lot of these timestamp details are kind of funny right now, and there's notes in like the changelog that John put of how these should kind of be resolved, just as like a quick, essentially we just need some way of storing what the last timestamp of these nodes getting a certain patch is. I don't know if I should go to the chat. Yeah, and this is a little problematic right now, in the way that this is, but it's fine. Sorry. It's specifically down here. These timestamps are problematic. And then in terms of this process, I'm just going to show a figure of what happens that's linked in this document, where essentially you choose a healthy node, you shut down the chosen node, you snapshot the chosen node, and then you restart it, create the shared gallery image, and from the snapshot itself, delete the snapshot and reconfigure everything to it. That's the general idea of it. There's lots of little details in these YAML file examples there. And then in terms of security model, we're going to parse everything through there's certain risks of bad snapshots being taken or bad thing being applied, and then the user will have to essentially look at this, or will have some sort of detection of the bad snapshot itself, in which case there aren't current alternatives that been made for CapZ. There's a very similar project called Camino for AKS Engine, and certain operators may have implemented this themselves, but it's somewhat unlikely because this process is more convoluted in terms of what it's actually doing, and it's very doubtful that they implement the exact same thing. We're gonna make end-to-end tests. Some of the graduation criteria needs to be scoped out more, but there's different fields that'll be moved for things to be more integrated, but are currently supposed to be in a different place to be less breaking. Yeah, that was definitely quick and dirty, but yeah.
Cool. Go ahead, Mike.
I want to start off by saying this sounds pretty awesome. Thank you for your hard work with it. Was reading through it very, very briefly now. And
I can't hear Mike. Wait.
I can hear Mike. Can you hear me?
My
Ben?
volume is messed up. Sorry.
Okay, good.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry. My volume was just off for the duration of that.
I was just saying this looks really awesome. So thank you for putting this together. I had a quick question about when you were saying enabling it, is it enabled per node pool or is it enabled per cluster?
It should be enableable per cluster. I guess.
I'm just curious which way you were looking at it from.
I was looking at it from like a cluster by cluster basis, but I guess the way it's kind of described, it would be more specific to each node pool in here with the way it's currently is. But I was thinking of it on a more cluster basis.
Okay. The reason why I ask is because I could see us having node pools where we wouldn't want it to be cycled on a regular basis, perhaps along the lines of perhaps more of the critical things. Yeah, Jack, I was definitely gonna mention it add a comment onto there about it. I'm just riffing here because this is all new, but I could definitely see especially the advantage of having the cached images for some of our tenants as these get applied onto it. So that's really cool. The other question I had was when that TTL that's on there, when that TTL expires, or when that time frame gets hit, it basically goes through and does the upgrade of that node pool, right? To apply that new cached image. It just doesn't do the all new nodes or scaling at that point, use the new image. It actually replaces all the existing ones, right?
Yeah, ideally it won't do that. There'll be some sort of scale out that it doesn't immediately have to update every single thing every time that the image gets redirected, but that I did not have time to fix that in the doc in terms of making that more specific with like a rollout strategy and things like that. Because otherwise it would refresh on the interval and that'd be kind of problematic.
Yeah, I was just curious about that, but awesome stuff. Thank you so much.
Jack?
Cool. Yeah, this is really exciting. So I actually wasn't going to speak to that last comment by Mike, but I have a thought on that as well. I think that we probably could add a brief paragraph in the proposal to describe how whether or not the updates to the node pool are applied immediately to existing nodes. That's a configurable thing that as far as I can tell, Cluster API already provides the sufficient interfaces that we can use, rolling upgrade strategy, all that kind of thing. So I don't think you need to go into detail in the proposal, but it's probably a good call out. Long term, it would probably be a great doc. That would be like a nice dedicated doc to describe why you may or may not want to do that. So obviously the trade-offs you've prior to internalize, Benny, having a sort of maybe unnecessary amount of node replacement and thrashing and workloads getting evicted and all that kind of thing. If you used a really aggressive rolling upgrade configuration every time you updated the machine pool with the new OS image, then you'd be rolling through all your nodes. So if you have an aggressive interval, it's going to be happening like a lot. So you might not want to do that, but we might want to have a doc to help folks who would want to do that, either because they're primarily consuming security updates, or maybe a doc that describes how you could do that in a one-time situation. So if you've got like a cluster with 1,000 nodes in it, and you want to optimize rolling out a security patch to 1,000 nodes, you probably, an optimization, if you've got like 3 hours to do this work, would be to do the upgrade on do the patch on one node, take the snapshot, and then do a rolling upgrade, as opposed to sort of letting the vanilla apt-get upgrade or unattended upgrades process go through. That might take 12 hours, 24 hours to propagate across your cluster if each node that's online is manually doing the work. I don't mean to digress too much anyway, but it's a super interesting topic. And the key point is that it's going to be really, really configurable. So we're going to want to reinforce with a lot of documentation to help folks figure out how to configure. And then the thing I initially raised my hand about was clarity on Linux, Windows. Are we explicitly kicking Windows out of scope, or is that a stretch goal?
It's a stretch goal.
Cool, awesome.
Cool. Pretty good stuff, Benny. Do we have any more questions or comments on the proposal? Anything? Nope. That was all we had on the agenda. I'm just going to put in Windows support is a stretch goal. If anybody has any random topics, this would be a good time for that, or we can go on to milestone review. All right, let me re-share screen. Due by July 11th, so a little less than a month. But really, there's a big holiday there, so it's more like 2 weeks of work, I would say, is all we have left. We have 18 open issues, so we can probably touch them all quickly, or at least roll over them. This we know pretty well at this point, and I have started working on it, and I'm still trying to find the best approach, but I think we know the way forward, so that should happen soon. Reconcile occasionally fails to find cluster identity. This is a help wanted bug, but it's on the milestone. I thought in general we didn't do that, but does that mean, Cecile, that we need to schedule it to one of us, or is it just hopeful that we're going to get it done for this milestone?
I think this is because there was a bug, and that's something we wanted to look at. But I think at this point we're late enough that if it's not a sign, then it should probably be removed. It's marked as help wanted.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can leave it in the milestone and maybe we'll get lucky and someone will fix it in the next few weeks, or we can unassign it from the milestone. I don't care which way we go. I guess let's just leave it and be optimistic. Maybe someone will jump in and we can kick it out next week, I guess. This is obviously in progress. Please just shout out if you have any comments about something. I'm not rolling over. I'm rolling over too fast. Machine pool UX. Wow, this is mine and I still haven't looked at it. All right. The proposal we just talked about, and that should merge very soon. User identity in CAPC managed AKS cluster. Does anybody have an update on this? So we have a commitment to work on, and then Jack, you assigned it to yourself.
Yeah, I could speak to that a little bit. I'm going to prioritize this in the next couple of weeks before I go on leave for July and August. And is this an issue? So
This is the issue, yeah.
Right, there's a PR that depending on the issue that is, there's a PR that captures this, or there is a PR that currently doesn't capture this, but we're considering expand. This is it. Great. So I'm committed to moving this forward in the next couple of weeks,
Okay.
either finishing it or handing it off. In terms of milestone 110, we'll know more probably next week.
Okay. And the PR is also on the milestone, so we're all set. I just haven't
That's
gotten
fair
there
for
yet.
now, yeah.
Okay. Kubelet is this related, or is it just something else they put in? Other help wanted issue.
Related-ish, yeah.
Should I leave it?
Actually, I think that
Open-ish?
one I don't quite know what the scope. I don't quite know what that is versus cluster user managed identity.
Okay. Nonetheless, you
There are like
assigned it to
there are a
yourself,
series
so.
of issues on here, so they all need to be sort of clarified.
Okay, but we want to still leave it on the milestone for now because you think there's a chance we'll.
Yeah, we'll know
Yeah.
more in a week, I think.
Sounds good. This is about to merge, I think, right, Nawaz? So
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's about
right on. This is the PR we were just looking at. These three things, I think, still have a fighting chance of making it, but I need to buckle down and finish the SDK v2 auth changes. So I'm going to leave those on for now. What about these two ASO ones, John? I assume they're still targeted for the milestone, or?
Yeah, I think those should be good.
Okay. Cecile, how's the CAPC EVM extension stuff going?
It's going. I was hoping to have it done by this week, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm still hopeful of getting it rolled out in time for the release. That's July 11th, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I think we should be okay for the release. The rollout is in progress. It's just taking a while because safe deployment practices, which is good. But yeah, it just requires a lot of time to get something rolled out.
Right. Security rules don't get cleaned up on Azure side. I don't actually know much about this one.
Yeah, this one is it's already implemented. I'm just working on a E2E test. I was having some troubles trying to get that working, but it should be in for the milestone.
Awesome. Support bring your own network interface. It boils down to this PR, right, Dane, which is in progress. I assume we'll just leave this where it is.
Yeah, I think I addressed nearly all the feedback on it. There is one weird thing in there where every service must implement is managed, even though it's only used by one service. And so there's a question about why the is managed call is stubbed, which I think I answered there. But yeah, so otherwise, I think all the other feedback was addressed.
You need some more reviewing, sounds like.
Mhm.
Right on. And then this last one, I know this is well along, right, Noah? So this is still
I
happening.
think, can we once check that map, please? I think it's more of an epic. I'd split it out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So in this one, in the current patch release, targeting to get the Azure CNI V1 with one network interface per node merged. So these two will be merged in the upcoming patch releases. Target the other day.
Okay. But these latter two targets are probably out of scope for this release.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. And are these?
Yeah, I
Are
have
these-
PRs for both of them, but I can
are they all
adjust
in
the
the
milestone.
milestone? Sorry, just doing the clerical stuff. Are they all attached to the milestone?
I am not sure. I'll check and then add it back if they're on.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good. Do we want to fly over issues and pull requests? See if there's anything new.
You want to go to the PR review board, you can maybe go to the ones that need review or the ones that are in the no status. So if you go to projects. And then yeah, the board. And then the PR triage. I think if you go to the needs review category or the ones that, if there are ones that don't have a category at all, like there's no status, if there are any.
Yeah, a few of them. No status. This one. Well, this one I would like to get. This one definitely should be in for the release. Progress. Oops, just moved it up. I didn't put it on the release. Oh well. Test integration with autoscaler. Code spell, sure. Provider ID. This also, I think all these except the Calico one probably deserve to go on the milestone. Well, except for this 401. So unless anybody disagrees, I'll go ahead and do that. Probably async after this. This UI is confusing to me.
The code spell, yeah. So this is just so that we identify PRs and where they're at. So that way, when it's no status means theoretically no one's even maybe looked at it. And then that way, when we come here, we don't have to review all 34 PRs. We can spend our time on ones that actually need some attention.
Sure. But I'm just trying to make sure that from the point of view of the milestone that everything's tagged with 110 that we think we're going to do for 110.
Yeah. If you click on the PR itself that you like, then you can add it to the milestone that way. So if you click on that, yeah.
Right.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna. I don't know if this is on track for this release or not. What do you think, Jack? Should we leave it unassigned?
I would leave it unassigned. Yeah, I think this, in my mind, this is closely related to Benny's work to support that once we get an implementation of the prototype stuff. And so
Okay.
it's not, I'm not explicitly targeting the next couple of weeks for that to be.
All right. Well, this one should be on the milestone. Mhm. Cluster, okay. Sorry. Oh wait, we were just there. Does anybody see anything that deserves changing here? I think these have all been touched. Security roles, self file, CAPI. That's not a CAPC thing. All right. Anyway, does anyone have anything on this list or on the PR list or the issue list that we need to update? Otherwise, I think we can consider that done, let's say. All right. What else? Anything else to talk about? Enough meeting for now?
Thanks for hosting, Matt.
Of course. See everybody here next Thursday. Have a great week.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.